Accept your death.
So I ended up taking a sick day from work this week and just kind of lied in bed for most of the day. Went through, ended up down a rabbit hole of learning Spanish. Just found a bunch of content creators just teaching you Spanish and things about this. And I gotta tell you, learning another language is very intimidating. Like when they start talking about the intricacies of all the different rules of that particular language and that kind of a thing. But I think it's going to proceed.
It's easier when you're younger and you don't learn in that sort of like educational way. You learn through, mimicking the people around you and all of that other stuff. And your hearing kind of deteriorates over time. You lose like the ability to detect a lot of nuance in sound that younger, that children have that they can use to their advantage for learning that sort of stuff. So how's that gone for you? The pro competition started this weekend in Mexico City. How much stuff did you understand?
Not a lot of it. If I'm being honest, I mean, they're just so fluent in it that I can't really keep up. And then, I'm at the very, very basics, like learning what individual words mean and stuff like that. It's
really? Ask me where to find the bathroom in Spanish.
Baño? Baño?
Yeah, you just walk up and go baño. Like, okay, yeah, it gets the point across, right?
I feel like if I was a tourist, and I walked up to somebody and said baño, they'd know exactly what I was trying to get at them, But I feel like it's like this awkward thing where you're learning a language, you go up to someone that knows the language, and you're like, hey, listen to what I learned, and you're like, my banana is purple. They're like, wow, very useful.
Eddie Izzard has a whole bit about that in one of his stand-ups, like learning French, but you learn shit like, the cat's on the table and the mouse is under the chair and there's a monkey in the tree. So he goes to France with a chair, a table, a mouse, a cat, and a monkey. And just waits for someone to walk by so he could be like, hey, there's a monkey in the tree. And be like, fuck off,
Oh, that's great. I love that. I gotta look that up. There's a bunch of memes that came across my feed about, when you learn language through Duolingo or whatever and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of one of the talking points. So I'll keep you updated on my bilingualism.
On your progress, okay.
Yeah, and maybe I'll
try to watch some TV in Spanish. Like even if it's just like stuff like Narcos that has a lot of Spanish, even with subtitles, and then watch like the Spanish version of the shows about like Fidel Castro and El Chapo and stuff like that. And it's all in Spanish. That's what I was doing. I was trying to learn it like a couple summers ago. I was studying a little bit.
Okay,
that's helpful. Swearing sounds awesome in Spanish.
I can't wait to get there. I will. Yeah. I'm going to be loud. I'll be loud about it. I feel like I got to get into those like telenovelas, like those little soap opera kind of things,
Yeah. You have a lot of resources.
A lot of resources, absolutely. Speaking of resources, we have some comments to go through from last week. Oh, the comments are a resource. You heard it here first. All right. So
how's that Prime working out for you, by the way?
Hey, I guess I got to get that going in Spanish now, don't I? I'll have to find a Spanish version of it, and we'll make that go for it. Go Primal.
We're open to suggestions.
We're open to
top suggestions. 3 gets a poll on the channel.
Oh,
people can vote.
Oh yeah. What are we gonna make? What do we make trending this week? Let me know. What sounds cool? What's our new thing? Let's work together. Bonehawk setting trends here. First comment here. Natty T says, every time I'm reminded that Movado has a damn push block, I immediately get re-mad that this wasn't an MK11 spawn situation where next patch everyone had an armor break. There should be some kind of defensive mechanic in this game. Not gonna lie, I thought the same thing. Like when I saw Movado. And I was like, yep.
Nope, I agree even still, like right now. Like, keep something unique to Movado. We've talked about this before. I don't know if on a podcast or like otherwise. His does damage. Let his be unique that it takes damage or uses less resources or something. But if your cameo is available, like it's available to break, available for a fatal blow, I would not be mad at the introduction of a pushback block mechanic that relies on your cameo the way that Movado can do it.
I wonder if that would be like an instant fix to the Kenshi shenanigans, because we were just watching some Kenshi gameplay and it was thrilling, I tell you. Like, if you had the ability to push block Kenshi with like any cameo, would that be balanced or would that kill that character? You know?
Well, it causes resource. So who's got half a cameo and 2 bars to blow? Like every time you end up in Sento pressure, and what if you end up just like right back in it again, and then you really don't have any resources? It's like, waking up with armor, it got blocked, and now you're getting comboed, and you can't break because you just spent a bar on your armor that didn't work. I don't think it's that much different than that sort of thing.
Do you think it would take the same resources for like every cameo that does it, like the 2 bars in the cameo? Or do you think that would be like
Yeah, I think that's fair, just so you don't see it all the time. Like, it definitely shouldn't be just 1 bar like it was in Injustice. That would be probably too much.
That'd be too strong, me feels.
And they had it in MKX, and it took all 3 of your bars. Block breaker instead of breaking on hit.
You never saw that.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you never saw that.
Sometimes
used.
On accident.
I think I've done it on accident a couple times. I think I used it as Quan Chi on purpose a couple times, actually, just because, I don't know, what else can I do? I was stuck there in the pressure. Because he's slow, like he's always slow. I don't know why they always make Quan slow. I guess because he's a zoner usually, so that would make sense. Anyways, good comment. Moving on. Next comment here. Seems to be the problem with Janet is the MK3 punches, which gives her access to silly damage, make the combo scale much harder. That way they can still pressure in Gento setups, which seems to be their intended purpose anyway. Lose their utility mid-combo. And that seems to be kind of what NRS wanted to do with that. Because they've nerfed those punches twice now. And we talked about that last week. So, like, I don't know how much more you want to nerf it, to be honest. But I agree with you. That's what makes her strong.
Cooldown or something? Dude, it seems like she's always there.
That is true. More cooldown, yeah.
Sometimes they're ready for a Gento and they don't have enough Janet to start that. Which is good balance. But once she's out, how she can like recharge it and all that stuff too. That's something else they could look at if they were going to, right? I'm not necessarily calling for it, but
no,
good old Janet. And we've been watching some pro competition, right, and seeing how much Janet
so far. Fair bit of Janet in pools. Yeah, noob Janet seems to be the wave.
Seems to be the ticket.
Seems to be the wave of the future. So we'll see if that dominates into the top 32. We only got to watch a couple of the pools, but we'll get into that a little bit after the comments here. So last comment here. I think the best sign for this game being well balanced is how everyone's tier list looks pretty different. Like Foxy has Lao top tier, but then you'll see other people have him low tier. I feel like there are a few characters that everyone sees as top tier, but other than that, there's quite a bit of variance. And I would agree with that. Like I feel like that's a healthy indicator. I don't personally see Lao that high up, I think, but I mean, maybe there's some cameos that make him up there. I don't know that I
feel like Foxy always has a specific vision, and not everybody's on that same on board with him. But I wouldn't say that he is ever been very consistently wrong. I feel like he's one of the people that's pretty honest about the game and the way he talks about it.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I have Foxy and I have similar play styles, at least the last couple of years anyways. I like to throw things. Foxy's been he's one that I miss his streams too, because he's streams kind of opposite time that I'm available to watch things. So I don't get to watch him a whole lot, but I see clips and I've heard over the years how he can be kind of a trolly type player, even with the gamer tags and stuff he uses. So maybe his tier list is a little bit catered to his playstyle more. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't go to his stream very often because that soundboard just drives me crazy. That's just like way too much for me. Like, and when he's got like jungle music playing in the background and that soundboard like going crazy, yeah. It's like the exact opposite of what I want in a stream usually. But he's obviously a good player, and I'll check in from time to time. But yeah, it gets a little rowdy in there.
Yeah, those types of streams just aren't really my jam. I'm a little bit more laid back. I just want to watch some gameplay.
You're an old fuddy-duddy.
I am. I'm not into these loud sounds and screaming into the mic and all that kind of stuff. That's not where I would go to ingest content, I want to just chill back, watch some gameplay, maybe a little bit of knowledge, information, similar to kind of how
do you feel like, so I mean, back to the comment, do you feel like you see a lot of variation in tier list?
I feel like the top tier is pretty cut and dry. Like I think everyone has like Noob and Kenshi at the top. Um, there's some characters that kind of straggle a little bit in the middle, but I feel like the top tier is pretty cut and dry. I think where most people will disagree on things is in the bottom tiers. You know, like I still am not sure who the worst character in the game is. You know, some days I think Quan Chi, other days I think Li Mei, sometimes I think Kung Lao, and then I just play them and get bodied. You know, and it's like,
And then Tanya seems to be resident bottom tier in most people's lists these days.
we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Isn't that crazy? How just like they gave her stuff and she just dropped because they took away that.
Well, they
armor.
took it. They took it away as well.
Yeah,
because they made her mid slower too, like 2 frames slower.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that was enough to kill the character? Question mark. I still think she's good, but
Not kill her. So, you know, she's actually, I think she's fun. You get like the charges up and the combos you can do with it, since you can cancel from the drill and stuff with the changes. It's pretty fun. I like her with Frost. That standing 3's got so much range. And just, you know, smacking somebody with that into Ice Carpet. Easy hit confirm into Ice Carpet. An obnoxious button to deal with, but
it's so obnoxious.
Ice Carpet doesn't combo from her standing 1 string. So, like, your 7 frame punishes on an already kind of bad, stubby standing 1.
Right.
Like, you don't even get that off of it. That kind of, like, throws me off about her. I don't like her down 4 or down 1 or standing 1, but she, like, more than compensates with her other stuff.
That big standing 3, I remember right when Quan Chi came out, you know, I'd try and bait that as best I could, and then, like, because it's a high, I think that's the same move we're talking about. I think it's a high.
Yeah.
So Quan can just neutral duck it and punish with standing 4 and just Serena Knives. I remember doing that and feeling like so big brained.
And she could do the same thing to you, right? When she ducks under standing 4 or avoids standing 4.
Yep.
And, you know, whack you with the old standing 3.
It's like a standoff, you know? Like, you know, who's going to do it first? Who's whiffing? Are we out here whiffing, or am I just going to come in and 4, 2, 1, and then Quan's just dead because he's so slow?
Does she have the biggest buttons in the game? You think her and Takeda probably?
Yeah, I would say her and Takeda probably some of the biggest buttons in the game. They control a lot of the space. Good movement on top of that.
Asha, of course. Asha forward 2 is another big button, but definitely not Takeda range.
No, they're not on the same level.
Not like a back 2 or whatever.
We saw that matchup in the Pro League earlier, and we were commenting on that Asha versus Takeda, and how Asha's used to having the bigger buttons, but not today, because there's Takeda.
Nope.
Big ol' back 2-2, I think it is. That was an interesting pick that I saw from Scorpion Prox, I believe it was, playing Takeda. Or no, was it
Takeda
Nicholas?
Jax. No, yeah, Takeda Jax.
Which is, I think, the meta pairing for that character, but not a character I expected to see out of the twins from this pro comp. So I'm curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, Nicholas was playing Takeda, and Scorpion Prox was the Baraka, which we saw him play last season.
That's right.
Baraka Kano. Same team as before.
Pretty straightforward pairing. There's not a whole lot that you really need to know about that combination. It's a shame because I really wanted to play Baraka. He's super cool, but especially in this game, I love his new story and all that kind of stuff.
You like that he used to be just but a humble merchant until that dang Quan Chi.
Yeah, the dang Quan Chi.
Or the Tarkat.
The Tarkat, and then now he's a vicious beast. The king of his people, or whatever, you know, the leader.
They still kind of, you know, humanized him and stuff. He's like, we were talking about John Connor earlier. He's like the John Connor for his community, or, you know, Robb Stark, Jon Snow.
Is that Game of Thrones? Is that what those guys are?
Yeah. You never did watch that, did you?
No, I didn't really get into those. Like Game of Thrones and the Breaking Bad. Never got into any of those ones. Maybe I will one day, but it's just one of those things where, like, everybody was talking about it so much that I just got annoyed by it. I'm like, I just don't want to watch this out of spite now.
What is on your agenda to watch though? What we were talking about all the T-1000 stuff earlier.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch Terminator.
You were gonna watch the Terminator movies. You've never seen any of them.
I've never seen. Well, I did watch the original one, but I was way too small and I don't remember anything about it.
So that's the one that you're gonna watch.
I'm gonna watch that one first. Yes, because
you need to. That's good because you need to go into the second one knowing like what happened in the first one. I feel like that's a good.
It's important context.
I just think that there's some cool throwbacks, and there is like some context, right? Like the way that certain characters are introduced and what it means because of what's already been established, like in the first one and things like that. You know, I think it's cool. I hope he's a cool character. I'm about as excited for him as I was for Ghostface, which was like, yeah, I'll check him out. But we all know Ghostface is super fun.
Yeah, you had a
So
pretty good
we'll
stint with
see.
Ghostface there.
Yeah, we'll see what I still messing around with him like a little bit. I think I decided we were talking about this before. I like to. It feels weird playing a character that can't do anything, doesn't have any air specials, doesn't have any way to like change their jump arc or do anything in the air. And so I definitely feel that missing when I play him.
Yeah, because all your other characters had something. Melina, Natara.
I didn't even realize it until I was playing him, and I was like, I feel like something's missing.
Do you think T1000 will have some sort of air fuckery? I don't really know about the character, so.
No. I think he'll have. So someone in the Discord pointed out that DLC characters tend to have runs. At least the guest characters, Conan and Ghostface, both have runs that can be canceled. And T1000 has a very iconic run from the movie that he was in. So I would expect him to also have a run where he chromes out or does whatever. I just don't want him to just pull out a 45 or 9mm and just start shooting shots and stuff like
Right.
Peacemaker style. I'm curious to see what they do, but I'm optimistic. Like I'm default on the optimistic side. I think T1000's a cool character.
Yeah, I'm actually excited because for most of the guest characters, I went back and kind of watched a little bit of kind of with their source, like I went and watched the Invincible series for Omni-Man, except for Peacemaker and Conan. For whatever reason, I didn't care, and Peacemaker I might still go back because I hear really good things about his show. But yeah, I try to familiarize myself a little bit with the guest characters. Even I watched Scream. That movie was terrible, by the way. But I watched
the first one.
Yeah, well, the newest one. Sorry, the newest one.
Yeah. I was gonna say you did not watch the first Scream and then just tell me with a straight face that it was a terrible movie. I'm sorry, sir.
No. The newest one, which I guess isn't the best one to get yourself acquainted with Ghostface, but it's just as much effort as I wanted to put into that.
No, you should have gone to the first movie because that's our Ghostface, Billy.
Yeah, he was played by Skeet Ulrich, I believe, from
Skeet Ulrich
from the hit TV series Riverdale. If you've ever seen that.
Is he in Riverdale?
Yeah, he plays Jughead's dad.
What a dreamboat.
That's the first time I ever really paid much attention to him. I didn't even know he was in Scream movies until after I watched that show, and I was like, "Oh, that's him."
I didn't know where he went after those movies because I've never seen Riverdale.
He's a big a net. You know how some actors just kind of get wrapped up in Netflix shows. You'll see just these made for Netflix shows, and it's just that actor every time. And he ended up being one of those, I think, from what I understand.
Did you watch the NRS has that little Conan history lesson they posted this week? Did you watch that? It gives you a little bit of lore and stuff. They're okay, I think people are confused, about. They're wondering where the hype is. I think even I'm wondering if he's not selling very well. They did a little promo thing for him and giving you some backstory.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that's what happened. That guest character really confused me. I don't really understand what they were going for. A decent design, and no shade to people who really enjoy the character, but I just think that didn't really hit the demographic that they were hoping to, or maybe they did. I have no idea. But imagine
I think that there is a demographic, right? There is people that want it, but it may be not as large as they'd anticipated.
Yeah. And I mean, it's got to feel bad to have a guest character released and then have to put out more information about the character. Be but hold on, this is what he's about, this is what, just watch this video and it'll get you so excited for this character that you want to buy it.
I mean, Conan has influenced so many things, right? That's where D&D came from and all of that other stuff. But it's in this day and age, talking to a Gen Z or a millennial or something like that, and They never heard the Beatles in their life, probably, except by accident, like in a commercial, and they didn't even realize it was them, or like
Right.
in a movie, but they didn't even realize it was them. But they still heard of the Beatles, and they appreciate what the role that they played, at their time, and what they did for the evolution of music, and all the madness about them having long hair that was touching their ears and stuff when they came over to the States, all the panic. But
Yeah, Beetle fever.
anyway, that's how I see like Conan, like not necessarily relevant in today. Like there's literally not a guest character I can think of across any of the NRS games that are less relevant currently, other than some just as far as like let's say size of the people that through name recognition and then like wanting to see it and all that sort of stuff. I think he's the
Right.
very bottom of all the guest characters.
I would agree with you. There. I had zero hype. Played him through Invasions. That's about as much as I'll touch him. A lot of people are saying he's underwhelming as a character, as far as like gameplay and like tier wise and that kind of a thing. And I could kind of see that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I think T1000 will be a good bounce back for NRS as far as releasing their characters goes. I think there's more hype for him than there was for Conan. It's kind of weird to go from Ghostface to Conan and then T1000. Like maybe that was.
I know, and Ghostface has a whole franchise behind him. So Spawn, huge IP, huge franchise. Terminator, big franchise. Peacemaker is like from the DC sort of like universe. Omni-Man, obviously just like one source, the invisible stuff, but very, very relevant. But even T1000, I think, is up because it was only in that one movie, and that movie came out in like 1991 or 1992. So it's been a minute, right? So they're appealing for that same like older den, like people of my generation. I feel like is what they appeal to with these, people that were like young teenagers when the game came out. I think is like what they cater these to, because that's the sort of stuff that was popular back in, or like what we watched as kids, like in the 80s, like Conan or Rambo or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like with all the era that they're trying to hit that era. I mean, next we should have like Skeletor or something, right? He-Man guest character,
Skeletor. Yeah, I want to hear a Skeletor voice actor in this game. Like that would be the silliest shit ever.
That would be so silly. I would love that so much. I love all the memes I see. I don't even like that show is a little bit before my time, but I love all the Skeletor memes that I see.
I loved He-Man growing up. He was one of my favorites back when buy action figures. I would say He-Man and Thundercats were definitely like staples of my my single digit years.
Thundercats. I don't think I ever saw that one. I remember.
Oh man, if you know, you know.
I remember Samurai Pizza Cats. That was one that I used to watch when I was a kid.
that is not the same thing.
I'm sure there's some crossover there if you go down
the
rabbit hole.
Character named Lionel. If there's a character named Lionel in your Pizza Cat show, then
I actually don't remember anything but that show other than the name. It's just like stuck with me over the years. Samurai Pizza Cats. I don't know why I remember that. I could have just made that up. That could have just been a fever dream. Somebody confirmed with me that existed.
Like weird Canadian public access that I've never heard of.
There are some really bad Canadian TV shows, especially like kids shows. Like I'm pretty sure that Caillou show is Canadian. Oh, that kid pisses me off.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's just this whiny little bald kid. Like, why is he bald? Like, he's not sick or anything. He's just a normal kid, but he just whines constantly. It's the most annoying show ever. God, I hate that show.
Dang.
So given that same like genre, what are like some other guest characters that NRS could add in from that? Like, I don't know if I'm going.
I don't even want to think about it. I think we're oversaturated with it, and this insistence on having them in there all the time, and so many of them being half of all the combat packs. The last couple games.
2 games.
They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I think any other like super hype guest is already like a ship that sailed. Like they can't get the licensing, or they had the licensing and lost it or whatever. And Ed Boon's talked about that before, right? Like there's a reason Buffy's not in the game. Like they've tried. They would like to have her in the game, but they, it's just not going to work out. So, dude, now we're dealing with, I feel like this barrel is run dry. So I'm afraid
Right.
of what the next ones are going to look like, unless you're putting in like Jinx from Arcane slash, I guess you'll be in 2XKO and shit like that too. Get Ken or Ryu in here, Chun Li or shit like that. Like I'm over all this other stuff.
Yeah, 2 games in a row now that they've done like the 80s action hero kind of a thing, and they've kind of like I agree with you. They've kind of blown their load.
It's just half the packs. I feel like one guest character per pack, right? It's just too many guests, and guest characters sell, but NRS does what NRS does, which is what big business does, and it's like, well, this makes money, so we're just going to do it threefold, and hopefully get 3 times the money or whatever. I'm sure it's more complex than that, but that's what it feels like to me. But like you look at other games with their season passes, and they've got like 1, maybe 2. Like Street Fighter had 2 crossover, like 2 guest characters in their current season. But it's almost like cross promotion for another fighting game, for that Fatal Fury game that's coming out, and then they get 2 Street Fighter characters. I would love to see that. So Fatal Fury is going to have Ken and Chun Li, and then we got Terry Bogard and Mai from Fatal Fury in Street Fighter 6. And I think with fatalities and all that other stuff, plus Japanese developers versus US and things like that, I'm not sure how much opportunity there is for any sort of like cross sort of thing where Mortal Kombat can feel like it can stay true to itself, even though I don't know, Injustice, I felt like Sub-Zero and Raiden were fine, right? Like they didn't feel like they weren't those characters, and no one's head was getting ripped off. And
yeah, I mean, you had the Sub-Zero outro screen where he pseudo rips your head off, and
the cameraman, right? It's like what Ghostface has for his outro now. But man, that's probably my favorite incarnation of Sub-Zero, period, across literally every single game, from the very beginning to what we have right now. Injustice 2 Sub-Zero, I feel like maybe not like the way he looked, but definitely the gameplay.
Yeah,
he was super fun.
His clone was super annoying, and I remember that.
I know people hate it.
I was not a fan, mind you. Firestorm could just kind of molten trap underneath it.
It scales so hard. They even like nerfed, it got nerfed, and you get like a 200 damage combo off of it or something.
He was pretty strong at one point. I remember Buffalo rocking him at some tournaments. And
I'm saying even after the nerf, it was still annoying. Even after the scaling increase or whatever on the clone, he was like still annoying. And of all the characters to not be stuck in the corner against, I feel like he's like way up in there. He's like a top 3 in that game to don't have your back in the corner versus this character.
Top 3 corner game. Yeah. Man, Injustice 2 was such a good game. I think out of all the NRS games, Injustice 2 is pretty close to the top. Pretty close to the top.
I feel like with a few tweaks that are like just way too obnoxious for me. And I think that I would agree with you. Like if like Poison Ivy drills and tentacle strikes and shit like that, like you had to commit to a direction, it didn't like track you.
Right.
That game would be, because there's just some of the counter picking in that game is just like way too obnoxious. Way too obnoxious.
True. That is true with like Starfire and Batman was running around like since day one being a menace. Like I think nowadays everyone's kind of has him as the best character in that game, which wouldn't surprise me at all.
Probably. I don't know. I'm not current on it at all. I don't know what people think about it versus where we left it when MK11 came out.
Yeah. Yeah, what a transition, man, from Injustice 2 to MK11. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, from like every character just has just layers and layers of sauce to just the driest hamburger you've ever eaten in your whole life.
Oh, man. I wonder what Injustice 3 will look like if we ever do get that. I'm sure we will at some point. I think Ed Boon's been on the record saying that he's down for that.
I think it'd be cool. I don't think they'll make it a hard legacy game outside of like mechanics. Like, okay, so we've talked about this before, right? Like, what makes Mortal Kombat? Just a couple things, right? Block button, like as though it was a 5-button game instead of a 6-button game.
Yeah.
Right? It's got block buttons. It has, finish him, finish her, fatal blows, or not fatal blows, fatalities.
Right. Fatal blows are becoming part of it now. Last 2 games.
What's that?
The fatal blows kind of become a staple of it over the last 2 games, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I feel like anything we've seen 2 games in a row that aren't too like crazy, they're here to stay. Well, Fatal Blows are kind of crazy, but things like Last Breath, I think, is also here to stay, and that was introduced in MK11.
I like that mechanic.
So now Injustice is a back to block and down to block. You don't have to hold down back in that game, just down. Instead of having a block button and the health bars. Yeah. And it's a 3-button, well, it's a 4-button game, but it's only 3 attack buttons and then your trait button. Injustice 2 was also a legacy game, you know, as close as NRS has probably ever come to a legacy game. Like there were a lot of, especially if you played a character like Batman, who is very, very similar to his Injustice 1 iteration. Black Adam and Catwoman are probably like the next layer of like definitely some core things that were there in the first one, but they have some new stuff and some frame data changes, you know, maybe new special move or something like that.
Yep.
What do you think they'll carry over to Injustice 3? All of that stuff? Or do you think they'll abandon Legacy? Or
I kind of think that they enjoyed doing that and will probably keep it. And especially if they're switching engines from what they did Injustice 2 on, it would probably make it easier for them to keep some characters more legacy. You know, and we've talked about that with building like an imaginary roster, right? That you're going to have like your core group of characters like your Batmans and your Jokers, Harley Quinns.
Yeah, your Justice League and your Batman's Rogue Gallery.
Then they'll just switch out some of the villains and some of the other more obscure heroes. But I think as far as the moveset goes, I would expect them to keep that. I would expect them to keep the meter burn roll. I would expect them to keep the forward threes
meter
and back
burn roll,
threes.
Push block, 4 bars of meter instead of 3.
Yeah, I don't really expect much to change. I think they'll just get some
flashes.
That's a staple. That I would be shocked if that ever went away from that game series.
Do you know what I miss a lot about Injustice compared to Mortal Kombat is combos off my down 2. Combos off a down 2 anti-air.
Down 2 combos. Yeah, like you had that stupid broke-ass down 2 with Enchantress. That thing was dumb. Just lowers her
she can
hitbox.
just restand. She can just restand you into her combo launcher too.
Yeah,
so,
that's great. That's so
you know,
crazy.
it's scaled from down. It's scaled because it starts with the down 2, but it, you know, I would rather take that than just the big, you know, 140 damage or whatever it does in MK.
Right. Yeah.
And teching throws in that game, you hit the throw button. You're not guessing in between forward and backwards. It's just throw.
That's a mechanic I really don't like in Mortal Kombat. You know, it's throws are 50-50, especially in a game like MK1 where you can get throw combos.
I just think it's so much better for like shimmy situations, right? Like when you bait a throw tech and you shimmy, right? Like in Injustice 2, it happened a lot with neutral jumps. Like in MK, it's more like walking shimmies. But I feel like I saw it a lot with neutral jumps in Injustice 2. And then they're whiffing a whole throw. They're not whiffing a standing one or something like that. And, you know, might recover or like whatever it may be. Or you get clipped on the way down. It's just a whiffed throw. I think everything about all of that, you know, but that made Injustice 2 almost too defensive, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, and that was like I think the biggest issue that people had with that game was that it was a little bit more zoner friendly. You know, like it
was turtly, and the games were long as hell. They were like 4 minutes a piece, and we were waiting on first to threes, like literally like 40 minutes for a set that went, you know, 5 games.
Yeah, I'd like to see them dull the timer down a little bit, because I don't think I saw a single timeout like the whole life of that game, because you just had so much time to do shit, you know. But I don't know,
man. It's so soul crushing though to be like on your last health bar and they're still on their gray. You haven't even knocked them off the gray. It's just, that's really defeating. I don't like that at all. I'd rather have like round resets. I would like just hard neutral resets, right? The round's over, the camera fades out, and then we fade in, and then we're starting position again. Like in Street Fighter and other sorts of games. I don't like you stand up in place, and sometimes the game doesn't realize how close you really are because of some sort of thing, and so you end up just standing on top of each other's nuts, and it's like, okay, who's going to mash the down one first?
Oh, that's the worst
sort of game. Shit is so dumb.
Yeah, that was the worst when, you know, your health bar dies or whatever, and then the character just doesn't move and stuck right in front of you, and it's like, bro, come on now. Especially against someone like Blue Beetle, who's just gonna mix your shit right away, you know.
here's something that they can leave out of the next one, just like they did. They left out of MK1 is interactables, especially if they're going to keep that strength character versus agility or whatever the fuck they were called characters that give you those like unblockable bomb loop things and other just dumb stuff. The idea of it's cool, but nah. But
Yeah,
so that can go.
I didn't hate it, but I mean, it's just a hard thing to balance when, there are interactables and then that makes you like get stage counterpicks too, right? Which adds a whole other thing to it was already a counterpick heavy game, so then you have the stage on top of the character you're dealing with. So, yeah.
Another thing really that's unique to Injustice that I think that they would put into the next one is the good old trusty background bounce. That shit is so cool. And I think that does kind of like, it makes you have some stage awareness because not every background bounce created equal. Sometimes the gravity's different, or sometimes the background bounce is on the left side of the stage, like the Atlantis stage.
Oh, yeah.
Which can give you like unique combos because you can do like little side switch underneath and now they're cornered like sort of thing into a man. I miss just trying to figure shit out in that game, just trying to find stuff, just set play, and just like so many things. Like you said earlier, going from like that to MK11, it's like what
serious downgrade.
I've got like two B&Bs. I've got two combo starters that both lead to the same like B&B, and then the rest is just kind of like neutral stuff or whatever, but not like a whole lot of saucy sort of thing. And then I guess the way they did the roll system in MK11, that's another thing that MK1 does not have, they didn't bring back, that Injustice does have, is tech rolling. So everything in MK1 is still a hard knockdown like it was in MK11 for some reason. So like all knockdown advantage is guaranteed, whereas you had to have like a hard knockdown, something that did a hard knockdown in Injustice 2. I mean, MKX was that way as well, right? And that's very traditional fighting game sort of stuff. Jumping
true.
up to your feet a little bit further away, unless you get hard knockdown, like through a throw or something else that specifically has that property.
I wonder if they looked into adding that at all, and then maybe like found something that it broke the cameo system or something like that, or if that was just a choice that they made, because that's definitely a choice that they make, that's for sure.
I know.
It's
it feels like an oversight. It feels like no one brought it up. They decided they weren't going to do they weren't going to have the defensive bar from MK11, so there wasn't going to be any sort of like wake up roll thing. But then they didn't they didn't remember, or maybe it was too late by the time they remembered, or like nah, fuck it, everything's a hard knockdown. Like
they weren't ready for the repercussions of their actions, But I feel like they would have added it in by now, maybe. Question mark? I don't know if we're gonna
I would like to see it back like in the next game, no matter what it is, because I mean it keeps your Oki honest and it forces the opponent to do something, and then you can start to use that to your advantage if they're gonna tech roll every time. Because it's usually just a mash, right? And that's what people are doing anyway when they get knocked down.
It's true. That's what I do when I get knocked down. I mash a button. Wake up buttons. Good old trusty, faithful wake up buttons.
Or your button turns into a tech roll.
That would be cool too. But I don't know. I think the only mechanic that I think they really changed in MK1 was that down 2. And you still don't see that used too often. Every once in a while. But I think that was a cool way to do it, That instead of the crushing blow, it's a down 2 combo, but melts your bar and that kind of thing. I like that.
Yeah, they gave everyone like a jump cancel. And that's another one of those like really expensive sorts of things. Nothing that you can do all the time because it costs 2 bars, but yeah, it's definitely possible. If you feel like the only way you can anti-air people, like what I was complaining about not getting a combo off a down 2, like you can in Injustice 2, like you can in MK1 for 2 bars. Same idea. So if that's like your go-to anti-air, then you can definitely just capitalize on it. And if it ends the game, who cares? You have resources to spend anyway.
Yeah, if it lasts round or whatever, or you're dealing with something like Johnny Cage's jump kick that's notoriously hard to anti-air anyways, just down 2, full combo, take your damage. Maybe your character like Ghostface who can like restand you afterwards and add on a cameo like Serena or something to get pretty crazy damage. Actually, now that I'm thinking about that might actually be pretty insane for young Ghostface.
Maybe. I never tried.
Well, we'll have to hit the lab later and see what we can find.
I've never done it. I've never done a down 2 cancel in a real match in my entire life.
Really? I think I've done one.
Yeah.
It's easier with Quan because like my main B&Bs run off the jump 2-1, so I mean it's a little bit more intuitive for me to down 2, then jump up 2-1, 1-3, 4-4, whatever.
Yeah, it's just your combo starter instead of your 1-3.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit easier there.
I just never remember to be holding like up or the block, up and the block button at the same time, because that's it, right? Like you.
Yep. It's like enhancing it almost. Like you're enhancing your down 2. But maybe I'll try and subconsciously use that more. Now that maybe I'll do like some games where I specifically try and remember to use that and see if I can kind of work it into my game. That tends to be like how I practice things. Like if I want to add something in, I'll just play a bunch of games, and my goal is not necessarily to win that game. My goal is to remember to do X move or do X mechanic.
Right. The wins are situational, right? You're just looking to create situations and then just do a specific thing, not necessarily win, but
yeah, winning the game isn't what the main goal is. It's to try and remember to do X move or whatever.
It can be good counterplay against ambushes, right? People that throw out like a missile and then they just want to do something insane because they know they have the missile on their back, and if you can down 2 them and cancel that, and then by the time the missile hits you, you're in the iframes from the down 2 cancel. It doesn't always work out like that, which makes it even kind of discouraging, because I've seen a down 2 punish cancel, the iframes from that, I don't think they last very long, because I've seen people get beat out of that by like a sector missile or something sometimes. But I feel like my Molina sector, that's a quick way to shut down that whole missile into whatever stuff in neutral, like panic gap closer stuff.
Yeah, because I think you got the iframes. You get like a slow motion kind of a thing when it starts up, and I think that's where you get your iframes.
Yeah.
And as soon as that's done, I've used that against, like labbed it at least anyways, against like the Baraka Kano shenanigans, just to see if I would break through, because it'll, if timed incorrectly, which a lot of them, I think Barakas like to throw out like a blade charge or something first, and then kind of see if it hits and then have Kano come behind them. So if they don't like preemptively do it, it'll hit them out of that pretty consistently.
Or if they're not jailing their knives and stuff. Right, if you're just going to challenge, like, no, prove to me that this is tight here, because, like you said, not everyone's actually good. They're trying to copy stuff. They know the knives come next, but maybe not like the timing that actually jails you. And if they can't do that, then
yeah, I even saw Scorpion procs in the pro comp today a couple times get called out for.
He got mashed out of some knives, yeah.
Yeah, not putting the knives out. That is not a team that I expected him to play this season. I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest, but it wasn't Baraka Kano.
Yeah, definitely something more broke. Definitely something more top tier I was expecting.
Yeah.
Takeda as well from Nicolas.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. And from the matches we were saying, like, wasn't even doing anything particularly like world breaking, like it was just solid Takeda play.
These might be pool teams. Well, we saw Scorpion Procs play Baraka last season. Takeda wasn't out last season, so who knows what they're doing, but maybe these are like pool teams, and once we're in like top 16, closing in on top 8 and stuff like that, it's going to turn into like serious business, and we're going to see who did we see Nicolas playing? Who he was he was a Johnny Cage Chameleon player, wasn't he? Johnny Cage.
Johnny Chameleon. I think pretty much all the way through, even after the adjustments to Chameleon, still out there rocking that team.
We might see some Johnny Chameleon. Sonic says they're going to be bringing all these teams, and they've been exploring all this stuff, and saw Sonic twice on stream before we started recording this podcast, and both times was Noob Janet. So,
yep.
And that's who I've been watching them grind for the last however long. So I don't know.
It's the
what
smart
these teams
pick.
Are.
Yeah,
they'll come in.
I think that's going to be the team that we see the most of over this pro comp, unless there's some sort of adjustment. I think Noob Janet's top.
we will see a moment. I think we'll see a moment of Noob Chameleon in Sonic's arc for something very specific, right? I think Janet's probably better overall, but I think because Sonic can smell blood in the water.
Oh
Like
yeah,
when it comes to the
100%.
other player, definitely playing the player, not the character. And I could just see where Chameleon might pull out on top versus somebody specific.
That's what makes like Sonic so scary. Is on top of like just being so good at matchups and playing against the characters, they also play really good against other players too, and like know their intricacies and all this kind of stuff, and know when to strike and when to do the most insanely unsafe thing you've ever seen in your life, but somehow make it work. You know,
because you know they're going to push a button, right?
You just know.
Or they're going to over respect it, or Sonic's just crazy. Like, just knows when to block and when not to block, and when to disrespect. Just good decision making overall.
Yeah, definitely my pick to win the tournament this weekend. For anyone that's listening,
for sure.
Context: we're recording this a day early, so if you don't worry, we won't spoil anything for you. We don't know what's happening. We can't see the future.
Yeah, we watched Pools A and then a little bit of Pool B, and then we had to start recording because Dink has a work conflict.
I do have a work conflict. I do work the odd Sundays, which is usually pretty painful. But
Got to sell some paint. Got to sell some paint to the people.
People coming in wanting to buy paint in the middle of winter, Yeah.
What's your most popular color? Some sort of off-white, I would imagine.
Light gray. Right now, grays are the big thing.
Yeah, good neutral tone.
Yeah, it kind of goes with everything.
A cold gray or a warm gray?
Warmer, I would say, because a lot of the flooring seems to be a little bit more towards the red tones these days. I don't really know why, but that just seems to be what people are doing. So people are buying warmer grays, and it's a good one if you're ever selling your house, because it's easy for people to like visualize their stuff in a room that's gray as opposed to like a purple room.
Yep.
Yep,
and the warmer gray, so it's got some browns in it instead of blues, so it probably,
Yeah, you got to be careful though.
More inviting or something.
Got to be careful. If you go too warm and you have some red flooring, it can actually make your walls look pink, and you don't want that either. So you need
and even I don't really like warm grays, because even with the lights on, sometimes the walls look more taupe than they do gray or something, So my walls are gray, but I went cold gray.
I have a vibrant blue in my place. I am not scared of color. I like to be happy and bright and cheerful.
People can't visualize their stuff in your place, though.
That's true, but that's okay, because if people are visualizing stuff in my place, it means I've probably died.
And they're like, the sex chair can go over in this, or the sex hammock. Is there a beam in the ceiling? This part of the ceiling here? Okay.
Grab the stud finder.
Grab the stud finder. That's what they call the strap on.
Oh my god. The strap on is the stud finder. That's great. I mean, it will find the stud. It will do that.
Yes. It'll find something.
So to close us out here, do you think we're going to see any like wild picks in this pro comp? Any
nope.
wild? No, nothing out of the ordinary. Just going to be standard.
I don't think there's going to be any sort of like. I don't know. Let me ask you this: who could somebody pick, and you'd be like, "Oh shit, okay," and there's obvious. We've already seen a lot of Ashra, even though she's probably not sitting at the top. It seems like, referring back to those tier lists we were talking about before, right? She's definitely under all these other characters you've been seeing, like still like Homelander and Noob. And who else is up there? I think a lot of people still put Johnny up there.
Oh, yeah.
Kenshi, it depends whether you play the character or not. If you fight against the character, then you're putting him in S. But if you play the character, then you probably are hanging out with fucking Sub-Zero, and you guys fucking cry to each other, share a box of Kleenex or whatever every Saturday in your book club.
Your book club. Oh, that's great.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we see any sort of Darius, that would be pretty hype. And he has some good teams. There's definitely some good teams. Reptile Darius is good. Noob Darius. I got beat up in Combat League the other day by a Noob Darius. That shit's crazy. There's like so much mix, and like everything's a fun to blockable. It's nuts.
Darius is one of those cameos that can just bring something to like every character, because every character can get a knockdown. It's just a matter of finding how he fits into like what you have. And if you're already a mix-up character, you have like good staggers and stuff like that. He is a nightmare, like an absolute nightmare. Sub-Zero Darius is probably the craziest Darius team I've seen.
I could see that.
Omega D&D Omega K he's been on Rips playing not recently that I've seen, but a few months ago, a lot of Shao Kahn Darius doing Shao Kahn Darius. You can imagine how that
Oh
goes.
man, yeah, he's already like safe mix into Darius mix. No thanks. Into Steal Your Meter. No
Yeah, and to
thanks.
steal your meter. Come on now. That's good. So they definitely gave that cameo some love. But he's still not like super used.
Yeah, I think he is kind of awkward to use and takes a little bit to kind of, I don't know, tweak little intricacies that he does.
I just don't think set play is that strong in this game. Obviously, set play is strong, right? But it's not stronger than just getting more damage for your combo into, I don't know, a different sort of like setup or something. But to like just do your normal combo or cut your combo short, do something specific and get Darius set out for a mix up to maybe get another combo. And depending on how that scales and stuff, it's probably just not as strong as just taking the straight. Like, no, I'll just take Movado and just. That averages out, right? My 260 to 320 with every just straight touch that you get off of that probably is worth more than, a couple Darius mix-ups.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you there. Or like Kung Lao with the low hat. Like that's pretty low effort, big reward for how tough that
Can be.
cameo is to use, They see a lot of, like we saw Molina Lau earlier, like that. I think that's
a good team. That's probably one of his strongest teams in the game right now. Still, now that other people have moved on to like Chameleons and Janets and other sorts of things, Kung Lao Molina's super strong.
Yeah, and it's just good mix, safety, damage. But I mean, Molina Darius, like, when you can just do Molina Lau.
I remember Gorgie, our very own Gorgie. I think that was one of his early teams. I remember him tagging me in the Discord with that because he was like the only cameo I think at launch that could even give Molina a throw combo with his little spin kick. But that's full bar with the cooldown. We're talking about launch Darius, but they definitely have sauce. But he was like, especially at the time, he was just like way too expensive. And I'm not really like a Darius fan, right?
Yeah, I don't really care about the character that much, so I'm not like super excited to delve into him. I think what he does as a cameo is super cool, and it's like a super neat idea. I actually did a move in practice mode earlier that I've never even seen before, where he like sandwiches like both your character and him both like shoulder the character together in like a sandwich, and I'm not really sure what the point of that move is. It seems the hit advantage isn't that great. It kind of I maybe have to play around with it more, but I have no idea what you're supposed to be using that for. It was cool though.
He might have the best throw brutal in the game though, the best cameo brutality. I think he's got a funny one.
Is that the one where you like rip off the top of your torso?
You kick off their torso and he catches it and he's all like mortified.
Oh yeah, he's like
he's all grossed out, and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm cool," folds his arms and it's all good
with his shades on, all Mr. Cool.
Yeah,
that's funny.
So Darius is going to do it for you, huh? You just want to see a Darius.
If I see one Darius in top 32, I'll be like, all right, that's hype. I'm hyped.
What about a roster character?
Roster character, probably Sector, I think. As I've been playing with her, and I don't really see her much in play. I mean, she's a pretty hard counterpick to Kenshi and Sindel, so I mean, I could see it for like those particular matchups.
I think that's who we'll see Sonic play if they don't like Noob for a matchup.
I feel like that would be like a good pairing, like Noob Janet and Sector Motaro would kind of cover most of your options, I feel. At least as far as, mind you, Noob Janet on their own is pretty strong, but never hurts to have a Sector Motaro, which I think is her best pairing currently.
Right.
But we'll see. There's lots of action to come. By the time this comes out, everyone will probably have already seen it, and we'll have some footage of T1000, and we'll continue the conversation on next week with what we thought of that. So, as always, if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, because it really helps me out, and subscribe if you haven't, because I make new videos almost every single day. Hashtag Bonehawks, all that stuff, and we'll see all you Bonehawks in the next video.
Accept your death.